Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast presented by our friends at FanDuel. We are here to discuss the fourth edition of the CFP rankings, and it is November 25th, and we have just received, after waiting a ridiculously long time, for those rankings to come out. And I would say, gentlemen, not a ton of surprises. Obviously, some movement towards the back end of the top 25, but I would say the top end, it's kind of what I expected, to be perfectly honest with you. But we're going to break it down for you guys. We're going to talk about some scenarios going into the final week of the season. And then, of course, there will be another edition of the CFP rankings next Tuesday. And then the final ranking release will be Sunday, the following Sunday after the championship weekend. Right. So, or championship Saturday, it'll be on Sunday afternoon. And so we'll break it all down for you guys. Just stick around with Irish Breakdown, and we got your back on all that. But we're going to break down the fourth edition, knowing that we have two more to go, and kind of what that looks like and where, if we expect movement, all those kinds of fun things. So, gentlemen, let's just start off with your initial thoughts on the rankings as they came out. Is it what you expected? Or were there any curveballs that were thrown your way, Brian? What do you think?
Well, first with Notre Dame, related to Notre Dame, no, I thought you could make a case for Notre Dame being ahead of Oklahoma. I think that you could have said, hey, their overall resume is stronger when you look at all the different analytics that the committee looks at. But I think that Oklahoma's surface level resume strong enough that I'm okay with where they are. Because the one difference between Alabama and Oklahoma, to me, when it comes to where they are ranked compared to Notre Dame, because Alabama's got some good wins as well. There's two things that are different for me. Oklahoma does not have the really bad loss that Alabama does. That's number one. And then number two, Alabama's got a good surface level resume, but their underneath stuff is not great. They're a good offense. They're a pretty good defense, but they're not elite anywhere. I think Oklahoma can at least say, hey, we can hang our hat on a top 5 defense. Similar to what I forget. I wish I could remember who said this last week, guys, but whoever it was that compared Notre Dame to, Oklahoma 2025 to Notre Dame 2012 is very much right on pace with me. So I wasn't shocked that they did it. I would put Notre Dame over Oklahoma, but I'm not going to argue with the committee for having them there. I'm not shocked by Ole Miss getting jumped by Oregon. I think the chairman said exactly what we've all been saying. The minute Oregon gets a good win, we said this in the first rankings. We didn't think Oregon should have been ranked as high as they were, but we also said if they handle business in November, then they'll be justified in their rankings. And, getting a convincing, it was a 15-point game. USC kept making it a 1-touchdown game, but I never really felt like USC was going to win that football game. I mean, they were the better team that day. It's kind of like when Notre Dame and USC play. They're just not as good as that team. I think that's what the committee wanted to see from Oregon to then bump them up. Plus, Ole Miss's resume is not strong. Some people saying, why would you move Miami over Utah when they didn't have a great win over a 3-8 Virginia Tech team and K-State's a better team? I think the timing of when they moved Miami over Utah doesn't make sense, but Miami should have been already over Utah, in my opinion, so I don't have a problem with that either. Other than that, the only surprise that I had was, why is Arizona in the top 25? I mean, I get why they're doing it. They're trying to boost BYU's resume just in case BYU wins the Big 12. But Arizona is not the 3-loss team that's out there that I would have put in the top 25. I mean, I'd have put Navy in there over them. I would have put James Madison in over them. There's a lot of teams I would have considered putting in the top 25 over Arizona, but I understand why they're doing it. So that's just sort of my initial thoughts, fellas. And USC only dropping 2 spots was also pretty big for Notre Dame as well.
That's huge for Notre Dame. It as somebody mentioned in the chat, ESPN on their little graphic had number 22 Pitt as Notre Dame's best win. It's I think USC probably takes that cake. But either way, it doesn't really matter. Trev, what are your thoughts on the rankings as they came out?
Yeah, I'll start with the Notre Dame side first. I mean, they came in where I thought that they were. Brian, you and I talked about that earlier today. Just odds are they're going to come back in at 9. I will say this, though. I'm not up in arms about it, but because of the movement behind them, this also would have been the week to jump Notre Dame over Oklahoma for a couple of different reasons. You moved Miami ahead of Utah. Yes, I thought that Miami should have been ahead of Utah regardless. Why this week? Also, why did Michigan jump Texas this week? A week ago, they lost by 25 on the road to Georgia and were still ranked ahead of Michigan. And then they put up 52 points on Arkansas, had their best offensive showing, and beat Arkansas by the second widest margin, first widest margin in the SEC, and second to Notre Dame. But then Michigan, because they beat Maryland, then jumped Texas this week.
Right.
Why?
Right.
So because of the Michigan-Texas thing and the Miami-Utah thing, this could have been the week where the committee's like, okay, well, let's also then flip Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I'm in the same boat as you. It was like, I'm not up in arms about it. I get it. I was expecting them to be ninth, but because of the movement below them, I was very interested. Once I saw Michigan ahead of Texas, I was like, I wonder if Notre Dame's going to be eighth. Now, obviously, we know the result, but I thought that was extremely interesting. Also, quick sidebar, shout out to Joey Galloway for putting Booger McFarland in his place. Booger McFarland was talking about, there's no debate. You want to talk about who should be in and who should be above who? I just go back and run the tape. And Joey Galloway was like, okay, fine. Miami was the better team in the first 2 weeks of the season and haven't been since. What are we talking about here? So
that
shout
is
out
so lazy. So we ran the tape and watched SMU beat Miami. Why isn't SMU ranked ahead of them? We watched Louisville beat Miami. We watched Florida beat Texas. I mean, it's this whole thing of just
beat Alabama.
Yes, like this whole thing that just one game is all that matters and nothing else matters is just so lazy. And just, I give Booger credit for saying Jeremiah Love should be the Heisman Trophy winner. He's right on that. But this is why you don't jump on the bandwagon of someone who just because they say one thing you agree with when they have a history of saying just really dumb things. And when you get owned by Joey Galloway in an argument, it's time to find something else to do with your career. But Joey's been on fire this week. He had a great segment with Kirk Herbstreit that Miami fans are losing their minds about this week too. And they made a great point. Like, look, yes, Miami was the better team early in the season, but they're not now. They're not even close now. And that's what people are starting to realize. The people that actually understand how the rankings work. That's the fundamental problem is Booger McFarland's not looking past same record, one head-to-head. That he's not looking past that. And that's as we've pointed out, guys, that shows a fundamental lack of understanding of how these rankings are put together. The committee just doesn't talk about that. I mean, just the committee doesn't do a good job of explaining that, but people also don't do any kind of homework to understand that. I mean, it's a very lazy argument, but Joey Galloway's spot on. I mean, what's funny is listening to all these people make the same arguments about Notre Dame that they refused to make last year. When you know what I mean? Like that last year, like when 9-3, or excuse me, they're not willing to make the same argument for Notre Dame, that they tried to make last year. Well, I know Alabama has the bad loss to Vanderbilt and the bad loss to Oklahoma, but they're one of the 10, 12 best teams in college football. I know Ole Miss lost to 4-8 Kentucky and they lost to Florida, but I mean, you just look at this roster and all the NFL players, they're one of the best teams in college football. They made that argument nonstop last year. But now they're not willing to make that argument for another team that's a way better resume than what Alabama and Ole Miss had last year. It just shows that, for some people, you can't see past your SEC bias. Like, let's just have an SEC invitational with some of these people. At least be consistent. Joey Galloway's making the same argument about Notre Dame now that he's made for teams in the past when I thought he was wrong to be including certain teams because I didn't think their case was as strong, but I like consistency. I like intellectual honesty and consistency. I may not always agree with your outcome, but at least your reasoning is the same. And that's where I have respect for the argument that Joey Galloway is making this week. And that's why I was glad to see Kirk Herbstreit not push back on him, because then I would have savaged Kirk Herbstreit because he's been the one making these arguments forever. Remember when he was trying to argue that Michigan in 2018 should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame, who had a better record and beat them head-to-head back in 2018? You can't then come back and say now that Notre Dame's not one. I mean, guys, who was it? I can't remember who it was, but somebody, I don't know if it was ESPN. I heard somebody it was Beanie Wells. He's like, this is one of the best. They asked him if it comes down to Notre Dame or Miami, who should be in? He's like, it's Notre Dame. Like, this is one of the best teams of college football. I wouldn't want to play Notre Dame. And you're getting more and more people making that argument, but Booger just, he's just really, really wrong on this. But at least he's right about Jeremiah Love should win the Heisman Trophy.
Can't win them
give
all.
him one. Give him one.
Yeah. He is an LSU grad, so
yeah, exactly. Huh? Yeah, I genuinely like Booger. He seems like a really nice guy. He does.
Yeah,
he seems like but he's just not good at his job. He makes a lot of bad arguments. Like I'd much rather see him talking about D-line play or scheme or something like that than trying to make these kind of arguments, because he's just not great at it, and he's consistently not great at it. My issue is that he's not consistent with what he's not good at. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I say about, I disagree with Joey Galloway a lot, but he uses the same arguments all the time. And he's using those same arguments for Notre Dame now. I just think in this case, obviously, I think his argument is correct, not because I'm a Notre Dame fan, because the data shows that in this instance.
All right, so let's talk about how things are shaping up. Let's talk about some potential matchups and kind of what that looks like. Go ahead.
Before you do, I do want to still kind of talk a little bit about the rankings, if that's okay, because there were a couple things that kind of were said. One of the things that a lot of Notre Dame fans are freaking out about, and to a degree there's some understanding, is, well, what about when Miami and Notre Dame are considered in the same pot? And this was mentioned in the past. Well, we're not considering Notre Dame and Miami right now. And there was this freak out moment from some Notre Dame fans who tend to be a little bit on the worst case scenario type of thinkers that, well, what about when they're in the same pot? And my response was, well, guys, they're looking at the resumes now, and clearly they see Miami is way behind Notre Dame. All of a sudden, oh, they're in the same pot now. Gee, all of a sudden, and he said tonight, he answered that question. We compared them together, and Notre Dame's just a better team.
Yep, they were in the same pod.
Now that they're in the same pod, they're still 3 spots behind Notre Dame. Yeah. I don't know if anything less than a 40 to 50 point beatdown for Pitt is going to be enough to then vault them 3 spots ahead of Notre Dame. I think if you're a Miami fan, stop crying about Notre Dame and start saying, hey, here's what you need to be saying this weekend. War Eagle. That's the first thing you need to be saying this weekend is War Eagle. Okay. Go Tigers. Hopefully Oklahoma can get knocked off or something this weekend. You know what I mean? Like, who's BYU play this weekend? They don't play a great team this week. They play UCF, so maybe Scott Frost remembers how to coach for a week, maybe. Like that's or you just need you only need one of those things to happen.
Yeah.
Because I think that you could see Miami jump BYU if BYU gets beat in the Big 12 title game. I do think you could see that. So I think there's a lot of things that you could look at and say, hey, you need to be hoping these other things. Hey, what's the expression for Mississippi State, right? More cowbell, baby, because you need things like that to happen. Or, go Stanford. You know what I mean? Like you're going to need something like that, because if you're just thinking that beating Pitt's going to somehow jump you 3 spots ahead of Notre Dame, I just don't know if that's going to happen. I'll say this. I'm rooting like crazy for all that chaos to happen. I want 2 more teams in front of Notre Dame to lose. I want Bama to lose, because I want Miami to be number 10, and I want Notre Dame to be number 7, so they can come up to South Bend, get their absolute brakes beat off, and then we can watch them cry all the way back to South Florida. And they can start watching the NBA or something like that.
I still want
all
them to be
13
11.
of their fans that pay to come up to this game.
I still want them to be 11 so that they get bumped out by somebody in their own conference like that.
I just want them to get beat by Pitt this weekend, and that'd be the ultimate kind of. But if they're not going to lose this weekend, then I want them to be, because I've said this since week 1. I want a rematch against Miami. I said about Notre Dame played like crap and still only lost by 3 points in that game. So it's hilarious watching them cry.
And it might have been the catch of the year that got them that victory, by the way. That was. Oh, yes. If Don Schuler plays that ball a little bit differently, we're having a different conversation. Correct. But they lost. Yeah. I'm not going down that road. They lost that game. But, yeah, I would love to see a rematch as well. That would be one heck of a lead up to that game from a talking standpoint. That's for sure. But, Trev, I think the statement by Hunter Yurachek that should have rang loud and clear to Miami and Notre Dame fans about where the committee views these 2 teams.
Yeah, because it gets rid of the surface level argument. It gets rid of head-to-head. That did happen. They also evaluate like 13 other metrics that, if anybody's curious, Brian and I did lay those out. John Bryce also wrote an article about it. I know some fans,
which is
down
where
south-
we got the data from, by the way.
Exactly.
Was the great job that John did. Yeah,
It is. That's where we got all of our data. So you could go back and listen to the show because I have a feeling that the fans from down south don't enjoy reading that much. So if you just go back and listen to one of our previous podcasts, you can hear us list out everything that they evaluate. We do talk about head-to-head. We didn't mysteriously leave out head-to-head and just
Right.
talk about all of the other metrics that they evaluate on. That Notre Dame has a very sizable lead in, might I add.
right.
We also talked about head-to-head. And that's what basically the committee chair is saying. Now, for people wanting the committee chair to sit down, Hunter Yurachek, for him to sit down and list every individual metric and where each team ranks
Right.
and which group is where, and that's not going to happen, nor will it happen. But when you factor in all of those, the picture becomes abundantly clear. And if you don't want to listen to it, that's just on you. But Miami, to you guys' point, they need to stop worrying about where Notre Dame is and what Notre Dame is doing. You need to worry about what Alabama's doing. You need to worry about
First
your
of all,
own
you
game.
need to worry about. Yes, thank you, Trevor. You need to worry about Pitt first.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, like right.
Miami needs to worry about their own football game. The ACC needs to worry about their own champ knocking out Miami, their favorite
Mhm.
child. And like, man, it's absolutely crazy. But yes, and you can even tell they're trying to push the narrative. I get it. It's the drama. It drives ratings. It's a lot more interesting than talking about why Ohio State is 1 and IU is 2 and Texas A&M is 3. I understand all that. But you can even tell that people like Heather Dinich and the committee chair are getting real tired of people asking them about, what about Notre Dame? What about the head-to-head? When do they become close enough? Heather Dinich today was like, guys, like, they did it today. They were in the same group. And there was still no comparison. And not only was there no comparison to have, one of them 9 and the other one 10, one of them is 9 and the other one's 12.
Right. And the other one's probably closer to 8 than they are to 10.
Facts.
So, yes, I think that was impactful. The thing with Oklahoma, too, a lot of fans saying, like, well, if you're going to, like, and Trev, I get your point. Like, if you're going to move Miami ahead after beating a bad Virginia Tech team, when Utah beat a bad but not as bad Kansas State team, the reason that I don't quite apply that, and some people are just saying flat out Notre Dame should have been jumped ahead. The reason I'm more sympathetic to them leaving Oklahoma ahead is because Oklahoma had an 11-point win over a top 25 team last week. It's the same argument we said to say that Pitt win was still a good win, even though Pitt got knocked out because we're the ones that knocked them out. The same thing is true for Oklahoma. Yes, their offense is not very good, but holding that Missouri offense to 6 points, and it was never really a competitive game, was an impressive win for how Oklahoma plays. So I'm okay with Oklahoma being there. Now, if Oklahoma struggles with LSU this weekend, that's a different conversation. If they beat LSU like 17-10, then now you can say Notre Dame goes out there and destroys Stanford. Now I could say, okay, there's enough data to move Notre Dame ahead. But I'm fine. That was a really quality win that Missouri had this week, or that Oklahoma had this weekend. So, like, do I think Oklahoma's better than Notre Dame? No. Would I have ranked Notre Dame ahead of Oklahoma? Yes. Am I going to lose my mind that Oklahoma's ahead of them? No, not right now. I mean, let's just see how this last game goes. So, that's where I'm at. The same thing with Oregon. A few weeks ago, I argued that Oregon should have been behind Notre Dame, even with a better record, because their resume wasn't as good. Well, now their resume is a lot better. Now I'm saying they should have been ahead of Ole Miss. And the committee chair said exactly what we have been saying. Like, we always loved Oregon. Their resume wasn't as impressive. Well, now it is, because that was a good win in Iowa. And it was obviously a very good win beating USC this weekend. But only dropping USC 2 spots says everything you need to know about what the committee thinks of Notre Dame and Oregon, because they're a 3-loss team that's sitting there at 17. Actually, are they the second highest 3-loss team? Yeah, they're the second highest 3-loss team behind
Texas is the highest, and they're right next to each other.
And I think Texas gets knocked off this weekend.
Right.
I think A&M beats them this weekend.
And then USC will bump up a little bit, which is okay too. So, and then, and if Pitt does what some people are predicting that they may do to Miami, since they've got the Hurricanes at home and it's going to be cold and it's going to be nasty and all of those different things, if they end up beating Miami, then, Pitt's going to jump up in the rankings too. And then all of a sudden you've got 2 pretty solid wins there under your belt as for Notre Dame. And because, they beat USC and Pitt pretty darn good.
If Pitt beats Miami this weekend, and we'll talk a lot more about this tomorrow, Notre Dame will have a much better shot of leaping ahead of Oklahoma.
I agree.
Much better shot.
I agree, because LSU is not LSU. I mean, let's be honest. They won by 3 points against Western Kentucky.
And the committee has said that. That's
Like,
something they pointed to about Alabama. Like, we watched them not look very good against LSU. Like, they said that in a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
I mean, they'll get credit for winning an SEC game and that that kind of thing, but they're not going to get credit for beating an LSU team that's coachless and struggled against Western Kentucky. You know what I mean? So like, yes, if Notre Dame is impressive and Pitt wins, all their resume gets boosted very, very well, and we'll know the answer to that pretty early because I believe that Miami Pitt game is at noon. It's one of the first games of the day, so we'll get that answer pretty quickly.
It's a high of 33 degrees in Pittsburgh on Saturday.
That's what I'm doing. Flurries? We gonna get any flurries? Give me some flurries.
Nah, it was sunny, but 33. So
all right, maybe a little
It's
wind
be
chill.
cold.
All right.
Yeah. So I did think that was important. I did enjoy listening to him say that because it needed to be said.
Yes,
and now
agreed.
at least some paranoia in regard to just Miami leaping Notre Dame just because can at least be kind of turned.
Let me ask you guys this question. So Notre Dame's sitting at 9. You got the doomsday people out there. What about this scenario? What about this scenario? There are scenarios where there are teams that could jump Notre Dame. Sure. A lot of things have to happen, obviously, with Notre Dame sitting at the 9 spot. Okay. So, because they've got a little bit of cushion, right? Because I think we can all agree right now that the cut line is 10 because 11 and 12 are going to be teams that are outside the top 12 and they're going to be leapt up, as conference champions. So 10 is the cut line. So let's assume 10 is the cut line. How do you feel about Notre Dame's chances, considering, the Alabama storyline, the potential BYU story, like all of these things? What are your thoughts on Notre Dame's spot at 9 and their chances of just getting in at this point?
Go ahead. You can start, Trev.
Yeah, getting in, I'm very confident that they will. I mean, there is a doomsday scenario. There's a doomsday scenario for Ohio State to not get a bye. I mean, there's a doomsday scenario for, Oregon to potentially not host I say that to say I'm confident that they were. And I said this last week. I felt like if Notre Dame was above the cut line last week, after some of the movement, after Georgia beat the brakes out of Texas and Oklahoma upset Alabama, if Notre Dame came in above the cut line, I would have been confident that they were going to make the playoffs. Now, I'm even more confident because they weren't 10th. It would have gotten pretty dicey if it was a 10th. I won't lie.
Yeah.
Like if Alabama and Oklahoma would have both stayed ahead of Notre Dame, that would have been that would have been a little bit more dicey. But when you factor in all of the things that the committee takes into account, I just don't see how they take Notre Dame out of the playoffs. I just don't. So I'm very confident. The question in my eyes is just if they host or not. I don't think that they will. I would love to be proven wrong. It's not that I don't want them to, but I'm very confident that they get in. I'm not as confident in that they host.
The thing with good stuff, Trev, the thing with Notre Dame getting left out, everybody keeps saying, well, what if Alabama wins and BYU wins out? Well, that assumes a lot of other things also happen, like Oregon doesn't lose to Washington. Ole Miss doesn't lose to Mississippi State, right? Texas Tech doesn't get beat by West Virginia. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen for Notre Dame to get bumped out. I think that also assumes, well, why do we assume that Texas Tech is going to stay ahead of Notre Dame? I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios here that have to happen. It's not just as simple as Bama wins the SEC title and BYU beats Texas Tech.
So I could see
it's certainly possible.
BYU, if they beat Texas Tech, and depending on what the margin is, I could see Texas Tech falling behind Notre Dame.
Potentially.
I could see that.
I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, they beat BYU 29-7 and didn't play well.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that game should have been 40-something-7. They kept selling for field goals. And I think wasn't that Baron Morton's first game back?
Yes.
From injury. So Texas Tech look, Notre Dame fans get real annoyed with Joey McGuire, rightfully so. He made some stupid comments. And Texas Tech fans, this is their first. It's like they're like that nerdy kid that gets invited to a party for the first time and he doesn't know how to act when he gets to the party, just acts a fool. That's Texas Tech. You know what I mean? Like that's them. But take that aside, that's a darn good football team. Like that's a really good football team.
Best team money can buy, baby.
You know what? So what? That's the rules.
They're not breaking the rules.
Like, that's
I'm
the
just
rules.
saying. Yeah.
Like Notre Dame's not where they are if they didn't go out and buy Malachi Fields and buy Jared Dawson. I mean, it's just that's the rules. So, but you know what? The other pushback on that comment too, Vince, I get what you're saying is a lot of teams went out and bought a lot of players and they haven't been able to bring them together and play with the cohesion that this Texas Tech coaching staff has been able to get this together, which is a big reason why James Blanchard is someone that Marcus Freeman wanted, because clearly he went out and found guys that were fits for what they were trying to do, guys that were willing to play team football, even though they were getting paid. And one of their biggest portal pickups, Quentin Joyner, got knocked out for the season before the season even started. So that's a good football team at Texas Tech. Their fans are annoying. Yes. Their head coach needs to learn how to, not say dumb things at a press conference, but that's a good football team.
I hear a lot less from Texas Tech fans than I do from other fan bases, though. Like,
sure. My mentions have been nuts. Like, not as much this week, but like after Joey McGuire said what he said, then Texas Tech fans just felt like they wanted to go run their mouths about everything. But somebody just said they're Shears Indiana fans. That's a great point. That's absolutely spot on. But I think they beat West Virginia this weekend, and I think they smack BYU. And if that happens, I don't really care about Alabama jumping Notre Dame if they win the SEC championship, because Notre Dame's on the road anyway, unless something ahead of them happens. To Trevor's point, like they would need, because if Bama beats Auburn, they're in the SEC championship game. The only question then is, who do they play? Are they going to play Ole Miss? Actually, no, Ole Miss can't get in if Bama wins, right?
Maybe Georgia or Texas A&M.
It would be right. So Ole Miss needs a win plus an Alabama loss. So if Alabama wins, Ole Miss is out. Then it comes down to, does A&M beat Texas? And then if Texas beats A&M, then it's Georgia, Alabama in the SEC title. If A&M beats Texas, then it's A&M and Alabama in the championship game. And then, that would be a heck of a ball game, by the way. And I think Texas A&M would win that football game, but that's, it's a conversation for another future show, maybe next week's show. But I think the odds of nothing happening ahead of Notre Dame while other things happen behind Notre Dame it's not overly likely, but it is possible. It's certainly possible. I think somebody gets beat, whether it's Washington beating Oregon, whether it's Ole Miss getting beat by Mississippi State, Oklahoma getting beat by LSU, as unlikely as that is.
Right.
Like there's those scenarios I think are more likely. Like, Indiana's not going to get beat by Purdue. Like of another unlikely situation, but one that would result is of Notre Dame jumping up is if Ohio State loses to Michigan this weekend and then also loses in the Big Ten title game. Ohio State does not have a very good resume outside of their dominance. Like, they're dominant because they win. All of a sudden you go lose to Michigan and then lose to Indiana. Their resume doesn't look as strong at that point in time. But again, not going to happen. I just don't see Michigan beating Ohio State this year. Of course, I've said that for 3 straight years, but
I was going to say, yeah,
I really mean it this time, but there's just so many different things that would have to happen. And it all goes against Notre Dame for them to be left out. I just don't see it happening. And the committee has made very clear they like this Notre Dame team.
Very clear.
Like, I could be wrong, but if Notre Dame absolutely annihilates Stanford this weekend and Oklahoma just beats LSU 24-10, I could see them leaping Notre Dame over Oklahoma next week too. Especially if like Pitt beats Miami, because then that would boost up Notre Dame's resume more, things like that. Yeah.
The bottom line for me, for this question, right? The Notre Dame being at 9 and my worry or whatever of them not making it in. There's like 5 things that all have to happen for that to happen, right? It's not just BYU wins and just Alabama wins. Like, that's not it. Like, all these other things also have to happen. That's just not worth me losing my mind about or getting worried about, Trev. Like, I'm good where I'm at because I think Notre Dame is safe at number 9. I really, really do.
Well, and the other factor that we haven't even talked about yet is the 6 factor. That's also assuming Notre Dame doesn't play Stanford well. And nothing that they've done really in the last month has told me that they're not. I mean, that is the other factor in this, because obviously we're working on the premise that Notre Dame handles business. And when I mean handles business, I don't mean they just beat Stanford. I mean they go out and they win 49-7, 42-3, like something like that. But that is there's so much, Vince, to your point, Brian, to your point as well, that has to happen, that I am very comfortable with where Notre Dame is at. Like there are scenarios for like 6 different teams that you could walk through that is like a doomsday, but the odds of all of it snaking it. One of the reasons why I said that I didn't, even back when this all started, one of my reasons that I didn't think that Notre Dame was going to host this year, despite last year them starting where they did and then ending ranked 5th, seeded 7th, is I think this year college football is a little different. And I think some of the chaos that happened later in the year last year already happened this year, with Texas dropping out and then Penn State dropping out and then Clemson dropping out. And then so I was under that assumption, not that there was going to be zero chaos, but that also then plays into why I'm very comfortable that Notre Dame is going to be in, because I think this doomsday scenario would require teams to kind of lose in a fashion that I just don't think that they're going to this year. So very comfortable with Notre Dame at 9th.
Let's talk about some of these matchups that are put in front of us, for today. So you've got, just to go over it for everybody, in case you're not in front of a TV or you didn't watch, the matchups are as follows. You've got number 9 Notre Dame on the road at number 8 Oklahoma. Winner takes on number 1 Ohio State. You got number 12 Tulane on the road at Texas Tech. Winner takes on Georgia, number 4. Then you've got number 10 Alabama on the road to number 7 Ole Miss, and the winner gets number 2 Indiana. And then you've got 11 ACC champ. That's what I'm going to say there. Number 11 ACC champion against number 6 on the road to number 6 Oregon, and the winner gets Texas A&M. So, fellas, of those matchups, what jumps out to you? What would you like to see? We kind of talked about Notre Dame Oklahoma last week and how none of us would have a problem with Notre Dame going to Norman. That's a good matchup for Notre Dame, I think. And that would be a fun one. 2 blue blood type teams getting after it in the first round. I think that's a great matchup. But what are the other ones maybe that jump out to you?
So who are we considering the ACC champ? Are we going to name that? Are we going to make a prediction on who you think that is, Vince?
Yeah.
You're the one set up the scenarios. Who do you think wins the ACC? Do you think it's Pitt, Virginia, or SMU? Make your prediction now.
I like the way Pitt played last week against Georgia Tech. I really think that they're trending in the right direction. Obviously, we're going to be told a lot with the way they play against Miami, right?
Right.
But I like Pitt right now. I'll say Pitt is the ACC champ.
So, and you think SMU then you'd predict either SMU loses at Cal or Virginia loses to Virginia Tech for the 975th time out of 977 games, right? Yeah. So let's go Pitt, SMU, Virginia, whoever. Trev, who do you like in the ACC right now?
Yeah, I'm in line with Vince. I like Pitt. I think they're hot right now.
I think I'm actually with Bill Bender. I think it's going to be SMU because I just don't see Virginia Tech beating Virginia, and I don't see Cal beating SMU. But I would love it if you guys were right. Either way, I don't love any of those matchups. Whoever wins that matchup is going to get smoked by Oregon.
Yes, agreed.
And then you'd have the 5-12 right now would be
Tulane and Texas Tech.
For the way they are right now, yeah, I'll go with that one. I still think if Texas Tech wins the Big 12, I think there's a world in which they jump Georgia and get a bye. I think if they get a rematch win over the number 11 team in the country while Georgia's sitting at home, I think you could see a world in which they do that. But we'll go with this for right now. I think that's a really ugly first round. I don't think that's a real attractive first round. I don't think anyone's going to care about another SEC West matchup between Ole Miss and Alabama. I don't think no one's going to care about Oregon against whoever the ACC champ is. That's going to be an ugly game. Yes, Pitt's playing really good football. I don't think they're going to be able to hang with Oregon.
I agree. No, that I do agree with. I just think that they're the class of the ACC at the present.
Agree. No, I think they are the best team in the ACC. They're playing the best football in the ACC right now. I agree with you guys wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I just don't love the matchups that they need to happen to get to the ACC title game. That's my
I get
only
it.
problem.
Yeah, I get it.
I hope you guys are right. But whether it's Pitt, whether it's SMU, it's UVA, I don't like any of those teams against
It's not going to
Oregon.
make a difference. Yeah.
And then I don't really care about an Ole Miss Bama first round. It'll be a much less entertaining. I mean, last year in the first round, we had Ohio State, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Indiana, the Battle of the Hoosier State.
Yeah.
We had Texas, Clemson, 2 blue bloods, and then we only had really one bad matchup, Penn State, SMU. That was really it. I thought the first round last year was pretty entertaining as far as the matchup standpoint goes. This is not as sexy as of a matchup. Having said that, I mean, Ole Miss can play with Bama, and Bama can play with Ole Miss. I think it'd be a good game if Lane is still the coach. I think it'd be a good game. I think there's a chance Tulane could stay with Texas Tech for a while. Tulane's a good football team, you know. I think eventually Texas Tech would wear them out because I just don't think Tulane's good enough in the trenches. The other thing is, what do they do? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, and then I think Oklahoma Notre Dame would probably the best on paper matchup. What's interesting, last week, this is pretty much the same rankings that we saw last week, with the exception of now instead of Oregon, Bama, it's you know what I mean? Notre Dame was the only road favorite last week when they did rankings. I don't know if that's going to be the case now, but when they did rankings last week, Notre Dame, I believe, was a 2.5-point favorite over Oklahoma. So I'd be very curious if either one of you guys can see anything along those lines now that stuff is come out, but that would be quite interesting to see. And then the other thing too about all this. Oh, go ahead, Trev. Go ahead.
No, you're good, man. I could see, depending on what Ole Miss looks like against Mississippi State and what Alabama looks like against Auburn. Now, that's assuming that these rankings stay the same. If Bama goes out and wins the SEC, I don't think they're playing Ole Miss in the 7-10 matchup. But depending on what that looks like, I could see a world where Ole Miss is the favorite on the road. Or, well, I guess no, Ole Miss would be at home. I guess okay, well, then I guess my point is moot. I mean, I guess my point was, if Ole Miss were on the road, I could see them potentially being a favorite depending on what each team looks like over the next couple weeks. But outside of that, like I just
– I think I knew where you were going with it, Trevor, but then it hit you the realization of what would have to happen for them to be on the road.
Yeah,
would mean they're not a favorite. It means they lost to Mississippi State, or Kiffin's not their coach anymore, or both.
Yeah.
So, Vince, what do you think about those first round matchups? And then you'd have Texas Tech would then play Georgia, which I think would actually be a great game.
Yeah,
and then Oregon would play. Let's just say if we go chalk right now, let's just say let's put Ohio. Let's say Ohio State wins, Indiana drops to 3. If A&M beats Texas and Alabama, they're going to jump Indiana if Indiana loses to Ohio State. Let's just say that. So let's say that Indiana's 3, and then you'd have actually, you know what? They may not do that. I'll tell you why here in a second. And then Notre Dame would play Ohio State. So here's why they may not do that. They may not do that because then you'd have a Big Ten matchup in the second round and an SEC matchup in the second round.
You'd have an all SEC like bracket on that one side and be Alabama, Ole Miss, and then A&M. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of SEC.
Yeah,
I don't.
Which is how I think it kind of should be done. To be completely honest with you, you know, you shouldn't be afraid to put rematches together.
Just be who's where. Like,
right?
Just drop it where it's at. I have no problem with that. I also think, you know, like I said, we've got 2 more sets of rankings coming out next Tuesday and then the following Sunday. What we're looking at right now, I think, is going to be drastically different from a numbered standpoint. Like we could be talking about the same teams more or less, but I think none of these matchups I don't think are going to happen. I just don't. I just think that there's going to be too much movement.
Yeah,
it's
like
gonna
for example, if we left Indiana at 2 and A&M at 3, like what are the odds that happens? Because that means that one of Ohio State or Indiana is going to have to lose, and you're going to tell me they're going to leave 13-0 Texas A&M, who in their last 2 games beats Texas and Alabama at 3 behind a 1-loss Big Ten runner-up. I don't see that. They didn't do that last year. They jumped Georgia ahead of. I forget who they jumped ahead of. They jumped ahead of somebody, two teams, because Georgia wasn't 2 going into the final weekend.
Right.
They dropped Penn State, who lost the Big Ten title game, from 4 to 3-4 or 4-5. They dropped Texas Texas was 2 going into last week. They lost to Georgia, dropped them down a couple spots, and put Georgia up. So I think that you'd see some changes there. And if A&M is not there, then that means A&M probably lost to Bama, which means Bama's not 10. And now we'd have an Ole Miss against Notre Dame matchup, which I would gladly take, by the way. Not as excited to go to Oxford, Mississippi as I am Norman, Oklahoma, as just a fan.
Sure.
But that's a better matchup for Notre Dame, in my opinion.
I don't think there's any way the Big Ten is still going to be 1-2 when this is all done. I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
Like A&M's going to either lose to somebody, which drops them down, and then they're fourth or fifth or something. I mean, so there's a lot that has to play out.
Right.
Between
and that's really my ultimate point. I mean, we can guesstimate and we can make educated guesses and all of that about how this is going to go, but I just don't see these matchups holding true. They may hold true again next week, but I think it's all going to get jostled after championship Saturday. Because they're going to have to.
And somebody in the chat said Ole Miss's defense is far worse than Oklahoma's. Very true, but their offense is also way better than Oklahoma's.
Yes.
So
Oklahoma's offense is just not good. I mean, they're averaging like 18 points a game or something.
I'd be more worried about playing a team with a great defense than I would a great offense with the way Notre Dame's playing right now.
That's fair. Because I really like the way Notre Dame's defense is playing right now.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, Oklahoma right now is what we speculate Iowa would look like if they could just score 18 points a game.
If they had a decent quarterback.
That's literally what Oklahoma is right now.
Yeah, that's a great analysis. This is what Iowa, what Big Ten fans think Iowa is what Oklahoma is right now. Yeah. Here's my question. I'm going to throw this out there because I didn't quite catch what he was saying. I was a little confused by it. I think the follow-up question was as well. And if anybody in the chat heard this, but Hunter Yurachek was asked about Ole Miss and what happens if Lane Kiffin isn't there. And he said, we haven't considered that. I thought he said, basically paraphrasing, that would hurt Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin wasn't there because they wouldn't know what Ole Miss looked like with a new coach. I could be wrong. If anybody in the chat heard that, and I unfortunately did not record tonight's show, but I wonder if I misheard that. Because I think what he was basically saying is we would have to evaluate Ole Miss very differently if Lane wasn't there, is how I read it. So if anybody in the chat, he said basically they won't have a data point to see what that team would look like without a coach. I thought it was, see, I took it the other way. That means they don't have good data points. So Father David took that as a positive. I think it's the opposite. So a lot of people are saying they took it as they couldn't use it as a criteria. I actually take that as the opposite view, is they don't have a data point. Why are we assuming the data point is only a negative or a positive? Like, hey, well, we don't have anything you don't have anything good for that coach either. So it's good. It could be taken either way. I think I actually took that as a negative. Like, we won't have a way to evaluate this team with a new coach. So we're going to put in somebody who we know.
So if Ole Miss wins the Egg Bowl and Lane decides to leave to go to LSU
and he's not going to coach them in the playoffs.
And he's not going to coach them in the playoffs.
I think he would still coach in the playoffs, actually.
I think he would try. I'm curious to see what Ole Miss would say, if I'm being honest.
True.
You know what I mean?
It's going to knock you out of the playoff.
Well, that's the thing. So that was going to be my question. If he's not let's just say for argument's sake, he's not coaching in the playoff. They're sitting at 7 right now. Are you gonna jump them out?
Yes. Same reason you dropped Florida State out, who played a game with the quarterback, who won the ACC championship with their starting quarterback.
But they dropped them they only dropped into number 5.
I think they would drop them out because they'd say, look, we have no way to evaluate how good this team is without a big reason why Ole Miss is 11-1 and in the playoff is Lane Kiffin as their head coach.
Sure. Of course it is.
And the committee has shown that's a data point that they look at. So I do think they would drop them.
It's just a far drop. That's all I'm saying.
I
don't know.
I get it.
That's a drop of a stone.
I totally get it.
I think they would put them on the road. They would just make it to where they don't host.
I could see that.
Completely dropping him out of the playoffs, I think, would be a big drop. I think they should drop. I just don't know dropping them out. I would drop them out.
My personal opinion, I would drop them out because, It's like saying, well, Alabama doesn't have Nick Saban anymore, or Notre Dame doesn't have Marcus Freeman. I mean, like, that's a big reason why your team is successful is your head football coach who basically still calls plays for you. I mean, I know Charlie Weiss Jr. is their offensive coordinator, but he's still your play caller. It's a little bit different if, like, let's say, it's more damaging for Ole Miss to lose Lane Kiffin before the playoff than it would be Notre Dame to lose Marcus Freeman, for example, for just the playoffs, because Marcus Freeman's just the head coach. It'd be more damaging for Notre Dame as a program, but as far as just a game, because your coordinators are still the same guys, the play callers are still the same guys. But with Ole Miss, it'd be different because he is a big part of your success. So I personally would drop him out. But I totally get your guys' point. That's a long way to drop them, to put them completely out.
People wouldn't be talking about Notre Dame anymore.
Nope. 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 Yeah. So that's going to be very interesting. And they're going to announce it, I believe, before the committee said after their announcement.
They said Saturday night after the Egg Bowl is when they're going to announce what his plans are. So that's a week ahead of
they don't announce
when the playoffs
if they win
out.
the Egg Bowl and they decide not, and they push back the announcement, then that's telling us everything we need to know that Lane's leaving.
Yeah, agreed. Because there's going to be
and the only reason to announce it after the game is because he's leaving. Why would you announce it before? Why would you not announce it before the game if he's staying?
I don't know. Maybe he wants to pull some Jordan Belfort type thing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put that past Lane Kiffin.
And look, if they're going to announce it on Saturday night after the Egg Bowl, that means we're going to get our answer pretty quickly, because you're going to get a set of rankings on Tuesday before final rankings 5 days later.
That's a good point. What I'm curious about is, what does Ole Miss do? Does Ole Miss go ahead, Trev?
That's what I was going to say, Vince. To your point about if Ole Miss would allow him to coach, I think the school would, because that means money for the playoffs, and having Lane at the helm would give you a better opportunity to win and make a run, opposed to if not. The biggest question for me is, how do the players respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that would be my biggest question.
I think I think they would be fine with him staying. I think one thing Lane Kiffin made a point of, and I think he's overstating it a little bit, but he said, look, these guys are all making transactional decisions. I don't think they look at it the same way that they used to, which is kind of sad.
I agree with
and
that.
There is some truth to that. And that's how he built that team, was through portal guys.
It's a bunch of 1 year.
I think they'd be fine.
All these guys are 1 year contracts.
The Michigan basketball players in 1988-89 would have been totally fine if Bill Frieder coached their basketball team, but Bo Schembechler said a Michigan man's going to coach the Michigan basketball team, not an Arizona State man. And Michigan went and won the championship. That's a little different deal. Michigan was like a 3 or a 4 seed then. It's a different animal, but I'd be very curious what they would do. I'd be very curious what Ole Miss would do. I could see Ole Miss, the way that Ole Miss has talked and some of the things I've heard behind the scene. I think Insured by Big is correct. I think Ole Miss would tell them to take a hike. And I think they would think that they'd still get in the playoff. I do. I think they think that they would still get in. Would they? I don't know. Guys, I'll say this: if Lane Kiffin leaves and Ole Miss gets dropped out, you would see dramatic things happen this offseason when it comes to the current calendar. I think you'd finally see some sort of push for legislation or a rule that tries to somewhat curtail the current coaching calendar, because it's like in the NFL, you can fire a coach now all you want, but you can't interview anybody till after the season. So what's your point? I think you would see some push for that, because this is getting ridiculous. I mean, you could have 2 playoff teams not have their head coach. If Tulane wins out, they could also not have their head coach. I mean, he could say, well, hey, I'm going to still coach the playoffs, but I'm leaving. Like, that matters. How it's hard to remember when that happened to Florida State. Remember when they were going to go play Oklahoma? Mark Richt was their D coordinator, and he was kind of trying to juggle the championship game and becoming the new coach of Georgia, and they went out and struggled, in that game. So the Florida State offense really struggled in that game. Now, we saw Charlie Weiss do it successfully, when he was coaching in the Super Bowl, or in the playoffs in the Super Bowl, when he's taking over the Notre Dame job. So I'm very curious how the committee would view that. They have to set a precedent, though. That's the thing, is they have to do something to set a precedent.
Right.
And
Right, 'cause
and
people will
what
look back
precedent
at
do they
this.
want to set?
Right.
That's the question. Do
There's
they
a
wanna
minor
set, like, hey,
precedent
if you
set.
leave, go ahead, Vince.
There's a minor precedent set by the Florida State thing, like you mentioned, but that was a 14 playoff, and they dropped them to 5. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
like, there's a minor precedent, but
That's
this
all
would
they
be
had to drop them.
correct.
You know what I mean?
This would be unprecedented if you're going to take a team who's 7 and drop them out. Like, that would be kind of unprecedented. Look, the answer is simple for Ole Miss. If Kiffin leaves, Charlie Weiss Jr. is your head coach. Come on now.
Bringing his dad to help out with the day. I mean, seriously.
Oh, there you go.
Joking.
No, I know you're not.
Bringing a former head coach to kind of help you handle some of the head coaching duties. Yeah, it would be rough, man. It'd be rough.
Yeah,
I just my question again, what precedent do you want to set as a committee?
They'd be scrambling.
That's exactly what you want to do. Do you want to set a precedent that, hey, you know, and I would imagine that the assistant coaches would all stay. Only the head coach would leave. Because the assistant coaches don't have to declare they're leaving with Lane. Even if they are going to leave with Lane after the season, it doesn't matter. They just stay for the playoffs. But do you want a team in the playoffs that's not going to be focused, that's not going to be locked in? Yeah. Are we really going to leave out BYU and Miami, whose coaches are locked in, whose teams are locked in, for a 2 teams or a team that doesn't want to be there? You know, because their head coach is out, their assistant coaches are going to be leaving. Like, is that really what we want? I would say set the precedent now. You know, like, if you want to stay, if you want to, you know, if you don't have a head coach, we can't put you in. You know, sorry. Unless it's something dramatic like your number 1 team in the country, but usually the number 1 team in the country's head coach isn't bouncing, you know. So, but still, that would be the interesting thing. What's the precedent they want to set? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I mean, it should, and I'm not even saying they necessarily should set that precedent, because, you know, again, we saw Michigan, because the example I used earlier about Michigan, we saw Michigan fire Bill Frieder, Steve Fisher takes over. What did Michigan do that year? They won 6 in a row and won the national championship. I mean, you know, like it doesn't automatically mean Ole Miss may galvanize as a team around their new coach and play like world beaters. We don't know the answer to that. That's what I think makes this challenging, because now you're punishing 100 kids and all that coaching staff for the decision of one man. So I don't know what the right answer is. I also don't think it's necessarily fair that you're leaving certain teams out whose coaches aren't leaving. You know, it's not an easy answer. It may sound like I'm saying it's an easy answer. I don't think that's the case. Dr. Pitt 444. I hate you guys. Just checking to say that. I completely understand. If I consistently got my brains beat in by another team, I would say I hate them too.
But you know what? If you just got here, we all said we are Pitt fans this week. We want you to beat Miami, and we think you're the best team in the ACC right now.
Yes.
So take that. You know, we're
It's easier not to hate someone when you constantly destroy them. That's the other thing too, Vince.
It's true.
You know.
It's true. But hey,
I just want to say that in the last 3 games that Notre Dame and Pitt have played, Notre Dame has outscored them 140 to, was it? It's 140 to 25. So if I was getting beat that bad in 3 straight games, I would hate that team too.
And look,
but we're still rooting for Pitt to win this weekend.
We are rooting for Pitt to win this week, and I will also.
What's
say
their thing? Is it Hail Pitt? Isn't that what they say? This
know.
Weekend, fellas, we're all Hail Pitt.
Yeah, 100%. And look, they've got some of the best uniforms in college football. I'll say it. I love Pitt's uniforms, man. That when they went back to that blue and gold look. Like I'm right here for you, man. Those are some good looking unis. So go Pitt.
I will say this in all seriousness. I was so glad when Pitt went back to their old color scheme.
Yes, 100%.
Way better than the navy blue and the gold.
Yes, that color scheme is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So go Pitt.
Yep.
All right, boys. Anything else you want to get off your chest about the rankings?
No, I mean there was some stuff at the bottom that I thought were a little weird. Arizona jumping up to 25. I thought Arizona State jumping all the way up to 20. I thought was interesting. You know, I think Pitt jumping up to 22 was expected, but you know, obviously I was a little surprised that we don't see a second G5 team in there.
Yeah. because all the chaos that happened at the
yeah.
bottom this past week, I was like, well, this is an opportunity for another G5 team to kind of jump in.
Yeah.
And it did not happen.
I had to put North Texas in there and basically been like the winner of that game between North Texas and Tulane, which is what is likely going to happen, is going to get there. You know, or maybe if you're trying to put Navy in that position because you want a team whose coach is actually going to be around, because North Texas and Tulane are not going to, both of them are going to lose their coaches at some point in time. Now, North Texas's coach is going to stay the rest of the season if they make the playoffs, so that's fine. But I don't know that Sumrall is going to stay. It's a little different animal going to a place like Auburn or Arkansas or something like that, or potentially Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin leaves. So that's going to be very interesting. But I'm a little shocked that neither, and JMU's the situation too, because JMU may not have their coach,
Right?
because Bob Chesney's being mentioned for a lot of these jobs. So that's the thing that kind of sucks about this. You know, like that's why I'd say maybe Navy's the team that they should have put there at 25 to just see how it goes. Now, you can put Navy at 25 all you want, but if Navy doesn't qualify for the AAC championship, it doesn't matter. Navy could be ranked 16th and they won't get in because they have to be the AAC champ. The only way that Navy can get in not winning their conference championship is if they were ranked in the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
which that was not the case with Boise last year. Technically, Boise didn't have to be conference champ because they were 9th.
Right.
But
yeah. Right.
You know, they like, let's say there was 3 undefeated teams because of the fact it's a big league and Boise was the team that was left out for some tiebreaker or something like that. They still would have been in because they were 9th.
Right.
Which would have been weird because then you'd had Boise and like UNLV or something like that in the playoff. That would have not gone well.
No.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, but the reality is if things fall the way that they need to fall, Tulane or North Texas gets beat, Navy beats Memphis, they'll then just jump Navy in next week. And then it's the winner of the Tulane Navy or North Texas Navy game is going to be there, I would imagine. But what gets interesting is Bill Bender's bringing up, what if the scenario happens that Duke gets in, which is still insanely
possible. Still a thing? I thought that they lost and it was out. Oh, wow.
No, they won this past weekend.
But I mean, like 2 weeks ago when they were all talking about it, I thought
they were in it going into this past weekend because 3 of their 5 losses are non-conference. They lost to Illinois, crazy. They lost to UConn, and they lost to, who was their third non-conference loss? I know 3 of Duke's 5 losses are non-conference. Tulane, they lost to Tulane. Could you imagine if the ACC gets left out and the Sun Belt and American champions get in? Which would be likely because Duke's not going to be ranked with 5 losses.
Oh,
the odds of that happening are like slim to none. Like they need, like I think it's, I forget what it is, but they need a lot. They need,
got it right here. So they have to. So for Duke to make the title game, just to make it into the title game, they have to beat Wake Forest and both Pitt and SMU lose. That's one scenario.
Okay.
Or beat Wake Forest and Pitt loses and Virginia loses and North Carolina wins. It's a lot of ands.
Because then that would do something to affect their, that's so wild.
It's a lot of ands. So
they need to make it simple. You know what these leagues can do to make this real simple? I'm serious. Beyond like stop having these massive freaking leagues or get rid of your conference championship games and just anoint your regular season champ. Because at least then there's no scenario for Duke to get in. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't think there's any way that they can be number 1. I think the best they can do is be this 2, I believe. But here's the simple way to do it: head-to-head or highest ranked in the CFB. I think there's a league that has that, isn't there? Doesn't one of the leagues? I thought I read that today. I thought maybe the American or somebody has that, where head-to-head is number 1 and the highest ranked college football playoff ranked team is 2. So that way, if there's 2 1-loss teams, then you go with head-to-head. But if there's 3 1-loss teams, or if there's 2 1-loss teams that didn't play each other, then you go who's ranked highest in the college football playoff rankings. Because that's the only reason conference championships matter right now, is who gets the automatic bid for the playoffs. That's it. So if there's a tie, you take the team that's highest ranked in the playoffs. Because Duke could be tied with a bunch of teams. They wouldn't be just 1-2 with the better record than everybody else. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So that's what
the reality is,
Pitt's only got one loss in their league right now, right? Pitt's only got 1 loss.
Yeah.
2 of their 3 losses were non-conference.
the reality is SMU and Virginia are going to be in the ACC championship. Like that. That's most likely what's going to happen.
The odds of Pitt, SMU, and Virginia all losing, or two of those three teams losing, I don't think is super great. I don't. It's possible, but
And
then also North Carolina would also have to
ridiculous.
win, and they're at NC State, which I also don't think happens.
For Duke, yeah, right.
For Duke,
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot for Miami to get into, so that's even more.
I think
hilarious.
Miami's out now, aren't they? I thought I read
Oh, no,
that Miami's
no.
out. What do they
can-
need to have happen?
Okay, so there's 4 scenarios for them to get in.
Okay.
So beat Pitt, and Virginia loses, and Duke loses, and SMU wins, or beat Pitt and SMU loses, and Duke loses, and Virginia loses, and NC State wins. Third scenario: beat Pitt and SMU loses, and Duke loses, and Virginia loses, and UNC wins, and Syracuse wins. And the final
That ain't
scenario,
happening.
know,
Boston
right?
College is going to beat the hell out of Syracuse this weekend.
and then the last scenario also has Syracuse winning, but it's beat Pitt and SMU loses, and Duke loses, and Virginia wins, and NC State wins, and Syracuse wins. Like none of that is going to happen.
No,
There is no chance.
outside of the Syracuse winning, one of the hardest things is going to be beating Pitt. I'm serious.
I
Like, in some of
completely
those-
agree with you.
Yeah.
In some of those scenarios, like I could see SMU winning this weekend. You know, I could see. I
Especially with
absolutely.
Wilcox being fired. You know?
Yeah, yeah. But one of the hardest things on that to-do list is beating Pitt on
Yes.
the road. Like,
Yeah.
legit.
And that's what you have control over.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the only thing you actually have control over. I'm
Literally.
not sure it can happen.
literally.
Yeah,
Well-
it's the ACC, the SEC's much. The SEC and Big Ten I like because there's just two teams in each league that just completely control their own destiny.
Yeah.
Bama beats Auburn, they're in. A&M beats Texas, they're in. Georgia Georgia just needs one of those two to lose, I believe. Because I think
Right.
Georgia has the highest high. They would get the tiebreaker over Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is the one that needs the most help this weekend, if I remember correctly. But Big Ten, it's two teams. You win and you're in. Same thing in the Big 12. You win and you're in. BYU
Well,
and
and-
Texas Tech win and you're in. It's much
Hey, listen,
much less complicated.
ACC is winning, you're in. SMU and Virginia, they both win. It's over.
Yeah, but it's like it's so much more convoluted. You know,
Well,
where it's
I know
like,
that they're tiebreakers, but
Yeah.
what it breaks down to is if SMU wins, they're in. Virginia wins, they're in.
Yeah.
Like that's it. So,
yeah.
but
But
you're
if
right.
those teams lose, they're out.
Then it's like,
I mean,
chaos
whereas in the
at
Big
that
Ten,
yeah,
those teams could lose and still be in.
yeah, that's true.
You know, if Indiana loses and they're still in, I think. And hold on, Indiana needs them to lose, and Ohio State they need something like. But like, if Indiana loses to Purdue, and Ohio State beats Michigan, I think Indiana's still in. Something like that.
Listen, if
Because they'd
Indiana
have the
loses
head-to-head over
Purdue-
Oregon.
If IU loses to Purdue, we're having a whole different conversation.
I
That
know,
should
right?
never happen. That should
No.
never happen.
It's not gonna happen. I mean, Indiana could play their worst game of the season, and I still think they beat Purdue by double digits.
100%. I don't even know where that game's being played. Parking lot doesn't matter. Like that
Doesn't matter.
does not matter.
Yep. All right, we got some super chats before we get
Yeah,
out of
we
here,
do.
boys.
From Bobo, thank you very much for the super chat. Miami
That
was
is
compared
Chief
to
Brody, by the way. Old,
of
with
course,
the
I remember
the
the
names are all different.
the
Yeah,
avatar.
that's Chief Brody. Yep.
Miami was compared to Notre Dame this week, in quotes. Yes, they were, and they're still ahead
Yeah.
of them 3 spots. So
Well, that's kind of what I thought my big takeaway from the press conference was that. It's, because a buddy of mine immediately texted me, "Oh, we're in trouble," and he's a bit of a doomsday scenario guy, and I was like, "No, they're not. They're fine," because again, now they're in the same pod, and Notre Dame is still 3 spots ahead of Miami. Like the beating that they would have to put on Pitt this weekend would be so great that I just don't see how that happens.
correct.
The
The
now
committee has made it very clear what they think of Notre Dame and Miami. They've made that extremely clear at this point. They were both compared to each other this week, and they're 3 spots different. Like
right.
now, you can complain about it all you want, but now
Right.
you know what the
Well,
committee
and there will
thinks.
be people at ESPN will.
Oh, I know they will.
Their
and that's
resumes
fine.
are not close. They're not
Clickbaited all
close.
night long. That's totally
Yeah.
fine. But at the end of the day, that's where we're at. And Miami's going to have to put up one hell of a game against Pitt for them to even be considered jumping Notre Dame.
Right. Right. And I just don't know that they're. I mean, they could. Miami could beat Pitt like that. I mean,
It's possible.
I doubt it, but they could. But is
I
that
just
even
don't
going to
think
be enough?
I don't even think it's going to be that high scoring because of the
No.
weather and everything else. So, like, if they win, it's going to be
I
a
mean,
close win.
Have we seen a team jump 4 spots? Basically, it's essentially what Miami'd have to do. 3 spots by winning, and everybody else ahead of them also won.
Right. And that's the other thing because they're still behind BYU. They're still behind Alabama. So they'd have to jump all
That's the
of
thing.
those
They'd
teams.
have to jump all those teams to get in, not just Notre Dame.
Yeah, this isn't a Notre Dame Oklahoma conversation. You know what I mean? Where
Correct.
they're just right next to each
Correct.
other.
Or a Bama Notre Dame conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
74 Ohio had a super chat, a super sticker, and then a super chat there.
All right. Appreciate both of those things. If there's a doomsday scenario where a 10-2 Notre Dame team doesn't get in, we kind of covered that.
There is. We covered it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it a little bit again tomorrow when Trev and I do our rooting guide. But it's basically there are no upsets this weekend, and then there are a bunch of upsets in the conference title games. That's basically what it would need to happen.
That's a lot of like. Could it happen? Sure. Like that. Absolutely. But a lot of things have to happen. David Ingalls, thank you very much for the super chat. Big one. Appreciate you very, very much. Am I as angry at being ranked behind Oklahoma as Miami is about being behind Notre Dame? Yes, but this one area in my life that I allow myself to be governed by emotion rather than logic. And thank you for always being there to talk me back from the ledge.
That's what we're here for. I would actually say that I think Miami has a more emotional argument to make than over Notre Dame than Notre Dame does over Oklahoma because they have the head-to-head. Like, I don't mind with Miami fans making the argument that Notre Dame should be over Notre Dame because they won the head-to-head. My thing is just at least have an understanding of how the process works.
Yeah, and
then also be willing to explain to me why then SMU should not be over Miami because they're higher in their own league. They beat them head-to-head. But they've got 3 losses. So what you're saying is the rest of the resume matters. That's what they continue to miss. What I find ironic is that they will sit there and in one breath tell you that Notre Dame's not very good, and then the next breath argue that their whole resume is built on them beating Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame was ranked where you guys think they should be ranked, then you have no good wins because you think Notre Dame sucks. So, like, that's literally your second best win right now is South Florida, who got beat by Navy. And my favorite one is this Miami fan goes, yeah, you beat Navy with their backup quarterback. I mean, I said, you mean the backup quarterback who rushed for 100 yards and had the game-winning touchdown when they beat South Florida, which is Miami's second best win? That backup quarterback? Just make better arguments. Like, there's a case that you can make for Bama to be ahead of Notre Dame if you wanted to have a discussion about it. But just be willing to have an honest discussion about why you think that is beyond just we've had X number of top 25 wins, because that changes from week to week. And it's not that surface level. Go ahead, Trev.
I'm on the complete opposite end. I don't think Miami has a single argument to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame.
No. I agree. I said an emotional argument is what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is I would be so much more on board with Miami fans if they just changed one little thing about their whole argument. And it can even include the head-to-head to Notre Dame. If they're this outraged about not being above the cut line because they have a head-to-head over Notre Dame and similar, then fine, I'll listen to that. You have the same record as Alabama. You have one less loss in BYU, or one more loss in BYU, and BYU hasn't beaten anybody. So you have the better win than BYU. If your argument was being in the cut line and mad that you're not in the playoffs because you beat Notre Dame, I'm with you. But being ahead of Notre Dame, like I'm not there. There's just no argument in my eyes by every other metric except for head-to-head. There's just not one, to the dismay of many Miami fans.
I agree, Trevor, that they don't have an argument. If you know the data, there's no argument. I'm simply saying that he's talking about the emotional ranking rather than logic. If I'm an emotional fan, I will say, hey, we beat you in a game where we were clearly the better team because they were. In Miami outplayed Notre Dame for 4 quarters. The only reason it was close at the end is because Notre Dame has better players. Because Notre Dame's athletes made big plays. Jadarian Price rips off a big run. Eli Raridon gets free. CJ Carr throws a no-look touchdown pass. That's the only reason it was even close. Notre Dame played like crap in that game.
Yeah.
So my thing is, I think that emotionally, I understand where they're coming from. They have a much better argument to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame than Alabama does, in my opinion, from an emotional standpoint. My issue with Miami fans is there's just no intellectual curiosity to understand why the rankings are what they are. I keep saying to them, if this is so simple, then why does every single ranking have Notre Dame ahead of Miami? Every computer model, every human poll, all of them have Notre Dame ranked ahead of Miami and Alabama. There was one of the computer models that had Alabama ahead of Notre Dame last week, and this week that's not even true. Because what's not being talked about enough is Notre Dame's dominance in their game over Syracuse jumped up their overall rankings quite a bit. And I'll have a once I can get my hands on trying to find the actual strength of schedule metrics that they use, because they don't use the ESPN metric. There's a different one. But if you look at the playoff resumes, so I'll give you guys just a little bit of a preview of that. Let me find the playoff resumes. There it is. So last week, Notre Dame defensively ranked 9th, 12th, 14th, and 11th in the 4 categories the committee looks at. This week, they're 7th, 9th, 11th, 7th, 9th, 9th, and 11th. Last week on offense, Notre Dame was 12, 17, 3, and 9 in the 4 offensive models. This week, they're 8, 19, 1, and 1. Bama actually went up in some categories and went down in a couple categories on that. Miami, so Notre Dame on offense is 8, 19, 1, and 1. In those same categories, Miami is 24, 40, 22, and 22. Defensively, Miami 6, 5, 7, and 8, whereas Notre Dame is 7, 9, 9, and 11. So they have the edge on defense barely. And I have a feeling that's going to change this weekend when they have to play Pitt and Notre Dame gets to play Syracuse. You know what I mean? But Notre Dame's gap on offense is significantly great. And that's also true. And this is my argument for Oklahoma. You know, Notre Dame is 8, 9, 1, 1 on offense, 7, 9, 9, 11 on defense. Oklahoma's 5, 7, 4, and 6 on defense. So they're ahead of Notre Dame in all 4, but they're 42, 82, 61, and 21. There. If you look at the FEI, the FPI, the SAG, SP Plus, and the Massey, which are not necessarily metrics that the committee uses, but Notre Dame is 4, 3, 2, 5, and 6. Last week they were 6, 5, 4, 5, and 8. So they actually went up. Sagarin, they went up from 4 to 2. The FEI, they went up from 6 to 4. The FPI, they went up from 5 to 3. They stayed the same in the SP Plus, and then in the Massey rating, they went from 8 to 6 because of how dominant they were against Syracuse. So that's the thing is people say, oh, you beat Stanford. And I'm like, look, I get it. Stanford sucks, but it's the manner in which they beat Stanford relative to how everybody else beat them. That's something that the committee looks at. It's not just who you beat, but when the way you beat teams is significantly more dominant than the way every other team beats you, that's what matters, which is why on the College Football Nerds' own model, Notre Dame's, remember how last week I was talking to you guys about how Notre Dame is projected to beat all the SEC teams based on the model that the College Football Nerds uses for their show, right? Their game model. Last week it was 33-24. This week it's 32-23. They're like 0.3 or something like that greater. Notre Dame is still favored to beat every single SEC team in the model. Georgia 32-28. Texas A&M. Let's pull up the old Aggies. Notre Dame is projected to beat them 34-22. That went up a point. You know, who else is there? There's Oklahoma. Let's look at Oklahoma and how their model says that 24-17. I mean, so there's a reason why that's true, because the level of dominance that Notre Dame has showed. But just be willing to have that argument. And then at the end of the day, if you still want to say, I get it, Notre Dame's really good, but I still think head-to-head should matter, then I would respect that, and we can just agree to disagree. But it's the whole time you're trying to convince yourself that the team that your entire resume is built around sucks. Like Texas can use the whole, well, if we wouldn't have played Ohio State, we'd be ranked higher thing. And I don't necessarily know that they would be, but you could use that. Miami saying, let's not play Notre Dame is just ignorant, because if you drop Notre Dame, you didn't lose to Notre Dame, you morons. You beat Notre Dame. If you drop them and replace them with Iowa State, your resume is trash. You're back where Michigan is, if not lower. Because now you've got one unranked loss. Your other loss was to the number 21 team, 24 team, and your only ranked win is what right now? Why aren't you guys saying words? I asked you to tell me who Miami's ranked win would be other than Notre Dame. Why aren't you guys giving me an answer? Oh, that's right, because they wouldn't have one. Like, that's your entire resume. So it's the stupidity that bothers me more so than the emotional attachment to the head. I'm actually sympathetic to that. But it's like this one guy was like, this one idiot lawyer, he's like, Notre Dame, Miami beat NC State way more than Notre Dame did. 5-point difference. So I said, if you want to talk about way more, let's go 78-7 compared to 38-10. If you want to talk about way more, that's what bothers me, Trev. It's just the stupidity of their arguments and they're just utter unwillingness. This is what bothers me about Josh Pate. Josh is being real lazy right now, and I like Josh, and I respect what he's done and what he's built for himself, and I think he does a lot of good things. But he's gotten real lazy with some of his arguments. It's like, dude, just spend 5 minutes doing research on what the committee looks at. Like, if you think Bama should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame, fine. But answer me this. Why are none of the models, none of the metrics you use, why do none of them have Alabama ahead of Notre Dame? None of them. The human polls and the computer polls, none of them. Ask me. Why is that? Like, just that's all I ask for, man. Just answer that question for me. And then the research that it'll take you to figure that out will tell you exactly why I keep telling you why Notre Dame's ahead of Alabama. But, you know, when your audience is largely made up of SEC fans, I understand you've kind of got to, you know, you got to do that dance. I get it, you know, but yeah. I'd be curious. I know he has his little power model. Has anybody I don't watch that show anymore. Does anybody still watch that show? Does he release his little power model in the last few weeks? Where's Notre Dame on that?
No idea. He just reacts to the basically the same thing we're doing. He goes live on
he
TV.
He has his own model thing.
Yeah.
So
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've watched some of his clips. I've never actually sat and watched his show live, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Josh is a good dude. We had him on the show. It's just I'm frustrated because somebody who should know better, you expect to just educate your audience. Don't feed into their anger. Don't feed into their rage. Educate them. And ask yourself, why is this team ranked behind Notre Dame everywhere?
Well, he says the chat says that he has Notre Dame ranked 7th in his model.
That's not he. He has a model that he plugs the data into. I'd be curious where Bama is on that. It's kind of a trash model, but I get it. I mean, guys, I understand why he does it. I've said that. But I just don't like it. Just because I know why you do it doesn't mean that I like it. There's things we could do that would make us more money, but you know.
Whoa. We haven't had that conversation. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
I'm joking.
That's why we don't announce live shows for kids that are going to announce commitments anymore. But yeah, no, if we played the rage thing, you know what I mean?
No,
we could do that.
No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. So he says. So Michael Raskinov says that Bama's 5. So again, then you got to ask yourself, why is your model the only one that has Alabama ahead of Notre Dame? I mean, if you look at Notre Dame's 4 in the FEI, Notre Dame 4, Bama 7. FPI, Notre Dame 3, Bama 5. Sagarin, Notre Dame 2, Bama 7. SP Plus, Notre Dame 5, Bama 10. Massey 6 for Notre Dame, 7 for Alabama. Notre Dame ranks higher than Alabama in every single offensive metric except for relative total offense. Notre Dame is 8 in relative scoring offense. Bama's 13. Notre Dame is relative in total offense, which is yards. Bama's 16. That's negated by Notre Dame having a way better field position advantage over Alabama. Notre Dame is 1 in points per play. Alabama's 34th. Notre Dame is 1 in points per yard. Alabama's 26th. And then Notre Dame is 7, 9, 9, and 11 in those 4 categories for defense. Bama's 12, 10, 21, and 22. They are not ahead of Notre Dame in any single metric. And Alabama has 5 quality wins. Notre Dame has 5 quality wins. Quality wins being teams that have a winning record. Bama's 3-1 against top 25 teams. Notre Dame is 2-2. It's that one metric is not enough for you to say that team should be better, especially when you consider that Notre Dame has more 40-point games against SEC teams this year than Alabama has 40-point games on the season against FBS opponents. Congrats, you finally got over 40 again against a 3-9 FCS opponent last week. Congrats. That's what frustrates me about Miami fans. It's what frustrates me about about Bama fans. Is just know what the committee looks at before you get all up in your feelings and make a fool of yourself on social media.
Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. Pitt beats Miami. Narduzzi finds new ways to help Notre Dame. Per his usual argument, ND jumps to 8.
Arrangement.
Arrangement. ND jumps to 8. Go Irish.
I think that's possible that Pitt beating Miami would be enough for Notre Dame to jump Oklahoma, assuming Oklahoma doesn't annihilate LSU. I mean, if Oklahoma destroys LSU this weekend, and assuming Notre Dame doesn't kind of lay an egg against Stanford, that could be enough. I just don't know that they will. I think the other thing, too, is going to – like the committee's in a tough spot because if you put Notre Dame ahead of Oklahoma and you put them 8, you put them 9, it's still the same game. You're just going to, kind of move them around. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think what would require Notre Dame to jump Oklahoma is obviously Oklahoma loses, but I think it would be Oklahoma doesn't play great against LSU, even in a win. Notre Dame destroys Syracuse and Pitt beats Miami. I think that could potentially, that would be enough. If they beat them similarly to how Alabama beat them, 20-10, 20-21-14, something like that. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Packers Total Access. Not a fan of that name. Sorry,
Clayton is great. He has his name
kidding.
Clayton on his normal one. He's a Notre Dame fan.
I'm just messing with you, man.
Vince is a very bitter Bears fan.
I'm a bitter Bears fan. Yeah. They're like
is there any other kind?
Me. Well, fair, but they're number 1 in the North. Who knew? Clayton here.
North
Great
must
show.
Suck.
Well,
I'm kidding. I don't watch NFL. They could be great. I don't know.
Listen, you're not wrong. Clayton here. Great show, fellas. Always look forward to your CFBP ranking breakdowns. You're welcome, Clayton.
Thanks,
we look forward to it
Clayton.
as well.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you. And Trev and I will have a lot more to say about sort of what we want to happen tomorrow. We're going to do our prediction show tomorrow, and then we'll have our rooting guide tomorrow as well.
Fred Lundeen, thank you for the super chat. I wish Miami would play Notre Dame in the playoff and just watch Notre Dame beat them badly. Anyways, team is rolling. Watch you guys on YouTube. Love the insight. You're welcome,
Appreciate you, Fred. Yeah. I kind of would like to see that too. There's 2 scenarios that would make me happy for Miami's ending to the season. One is Notre Dame gets to play them in the playoff and smack them. Number 2 is Pitt goes and whoops them this weekend and they're out. Then they'll just shut up and crawl back in your hole. We still beat you. Okay, cool. You now have the same record as SMU. So now should SMU be ahead of you? I'm just saying. So I just, you know what it is for me, guys? I just don't have a lot of faith in Pat Narduzzi to get his team ready for a big game. I don't. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't. The problem is on the guy on the other side is not exactly the king of getting his team ready for big games either. So that's going to be interesting. Very interesting.
Ethan Kaufman, thanks for the super chat. Read something from a legit source. Marcus is close to another extension, 13 to 14 million. Anything that you've heard?
I haven't heard anything other than that. I don't know how much I care about that, to be honest with you, Ethan. I've been telling you all along, Marcus Freeman's not going anywhere and he's going to get an extension. So I don't need to, I shouldn't need to. I haven't spent the time looking into that beyond just what I've already been told that he's not going anywhere. Cause I don't view myself as a journalist. I view myself as an analyst. And so I don't do the same, John Bryce does a great job of that stuff, so when John reports it, hey guys, here's it is. And if Pete Sampson reported something about Marcus Freeman being close to an extension, I'd say, hey, this is, Tim Priester did that. Tim O'Malley, because they're journalists. That's kind of what they do. And we lean into what we do. But I've been telling you guys for a while, Marcus Freeman's not going anywhere. And because I've been told by people very close to him that he's not going anywhere. He's very happy and Notre Dame's done everything he's ever asked them to do. Like the whole reason Lane Kiffin's going from Ole Miss to LSU, which if that happens, or Ole Miss to Florida, if that happens, is because he feels those places give him a better opportunity to win. There's more resources, more money. That's not the case with any of the open jobs compared to Notre Dame. Nobody has more money than Notre Dame. And Notre Dame has been more than willing to do whatever they need, including they're about to open this state-of-the-art state-of-the-art football facility. So all the things that that you want are going to be in there. He's not going anywhere. He was never going anywhere. It was all clickbait. I kept telling y'all it was clickbait. But so I honestly, Ethan, I haven't dug digging into the specifics. That wouldn't shock me. Like, and if it's a legit source, if it's a John Bryce, somebody like that, then I'd take it to the bank that that's close to happening. But he's not. He wasn't going anywhere last year. He's not going anywhere this year. I think he's pretty happy with where he's at. When Notre Dame stops supporting him, that's when you get worried. Rightfully so. But that's not the case.
Another one from Ethan Kaufman. Thank you very much. In regards to Notre Dame and playoffs, what team is most likely getting beat? Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Alabama, or Miami? I have Pitt beating Miami.
What do you think, Trev? Of those four, who do you think is most likely to get beat this weekend?
Miami. And that's not just from the conversations that we've had about Miami. I understand the Iron Bowl is just one of them where you throw out the records, and I think it'll be close. I just don't see Alabama losing that one. LSU is just flat out not good. That team has quit. And we can say all we want about Oklahoma's offense is not good. Dude, Oklahoma's defense is about to eat LSU's offensive line alive. I mean, just absolutely alive. So I don't see Oklahoma losing. If I had to rank them in order, I'd probably go Miami, then Ole Miss, then Alabama, then Oklahoma. Probably.
That'd be
rank
mine.
them in order.
That'd be mine.
But mine is Pitt over Miami of being the most likely.
The one thing I will say, Trevor, is I want to see what Auburn team shows up on Saturday. Is it the team that scored a bunch on Vandy, a team that scored a bunch on Arkansas, and a team that scored a bunch on Mercer? Now, you and I have talked about this. Mercer's an FCS team. It's a really good FCS team, though. That's a playoff team. That's a 9-2, 9-3 caliber FCS team, and they annihilated them. I've said this before. There are some FCS teams you could play that are better than FBS teams you could play. There are some Sun Belt teams worse than Mercer. There's some Conference USA and some MAC teams worse than Mercer. I will respect you beating Mercer more than I respect you beating Kent State or Akron. Although Joe Moorhead's done a nice job with Akron this year when you consider just the absolute no support he gets whatsoever. But they're 5-7. They finished 5-7 this year, guys. That's pretty good for them. For them, you know what I mean? But anyway,
one of the things I'll say about Auburn is they also aren't starting Deuce Knight, who kind of helped lead to their offensive explosion. They're going back to Ashton Daniels.
Did Ashton play against Vandy? Who was the quarterback against Vandy?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he was. He went 31 of 44 for 353 yards and 2 touchdowns against Vandy. So that's really a dumb thing. He rushed for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. You didn't play him so you could redshirt him. Like, you should have made that decision before this. You don't start him, then sit him, and then start him again. That's just dumb. That's exactly why Hugh Freeze is currently fired. Just stupid. And then I think Deuce will be ready to play, though. I do expect that, but yeah, it's the place is a joke. Ridiculous.
Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. Thanksgiving with my wife's fam is nuts. 12-course Italian-American menu, antipasta, lasagna. Turkey and stuffing is course 9. Can't wait. The fast starts tomorrow. What's on the menu for you guys?
John Panette has a great bit about when he went to Italy one time, and they just bring you all this food before your main course. It's not like appetizer, meal, dessert. It's like all this other stuff. Which my wife
you just
was
sit
like,
at a giant table, like
yes,
with anybody who shows up. Like,
yes,
oh yeah. If you like value like personal space, don't go to an Italian restaurant in Italy.
No, I would not. I would not. You guys know me. I'm very much a give me my room, fellas. Let me have my space. That's why I love sitting in booths. I don't like being in that community center.
A lot of community tables.
The only place I like doing that, though, is a hibachi grill, like Haniori, where we go, Vince.
Yeah.
I love that, but that's about it. I mean, we're going to be kind of basic this year. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, corn, green beans, pumpkin pie. We're going to be pretty basic this year. So cranberry salad for Angela. So we're going to be pretty basic. How about
Trev,
you guys?
first Thanksgiving, or no, it's the second Thanksgiving as a married couple, right?
Second.
Yeah. I think last year we hosted, so I don't have to cook this year. So we're going to Cincinnati to the in-laws, and my mother-in-law's throwing down in the kitchen, and she kills it. So excited for some food. It's all the traditional stuff: turkey, carrots, the mashed potatoes, stuffing, all the usual.
Nice.
We host as always because it's so much easier for people to come to us than it is for my big family to go elsewhere.
What?
And I know. That was always my excuse when the kids were little and they had a bunch of crap we had to bring. You know what I mean? But like, I'm holding on to that excuse for as long as possible because I don't want to go anywhere and I want to watch football on my TV. But yeah, all the usual stuff for us as well. You know, we'll get up early and be slaves to the kitchen, and everybody will just roll in and eat and get fat, and it'll be great. You know, watch football. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. We're just the two of us. We got a 28-pound bird, by the way, fellas.
For two of you?
Two of us, because I eat leftover turkey for like 4 days.
Holy
Until it's not good anymore. Like, I basically will have 2 Thanksgiving dinners the next on Saturday. Y'all may have to, Vince may have to come over and wake me up during the live show on Saturday night because I may be in a turkey coma. I was like, Brian, you're like calling Angela, like, can you go wake Brian up? He's literally snoring in the middle of the second quarter of the Notre Dame game. Like, Vince, if that happens, just take me up. Like, you can mute me and take me off camera and just please. I don't need that meme in my life.
Yeah, right.
You see me starting to nod off. You guys know what to do, all right?
Yeah, and I think that goes all around, to be honest with you. So
it does. We will all have each other's backs.
Yeah,
on that one, no doubt, no doubt.
David Ingalls, thank you very much for the super chat. If this U of Arizona's first ever appearance in the CFB 25 list, I've texted my brother, the UA grad, about the news for this list. Love to let him know if it's historic for UA.
It sadly is not. They finished 15th 2 years ago. In Jed Fish's last year at Arizona, they finished 15th. That Noah Fafiti had that great year, came off the bench early and had that great year at quarterback. They had Ted McMillan on that team. They finished 9-3 and 15th in the final ranking. So no, this is not their first time in the rankings, but still it's the first time for their current coach. And he had a rough first year and he's had a really good bounce back season. Like I'm not trying to take away from the job they've done. They've had a really nice year this year. They're 8-3. They lost to Arizona State or Iowa State badly. They lost at home to BYU in a close game, lost to Houston. My issue is their wins are over Hawaii, Kansas State, Weber State, Oklahoma State, Colorado, Kansas, at Cincinnati, which is a quality win, and Baylor. I just don't know if that's enough to, in my opinion, have them ranked over some other teams, like, you know, over a Navy, over a 10-1 North Texas team. You know, I don't know. I don't know that I mean, heck, why not put Wake Forest in there? They're 8-3. You know, I just don't know that the 6th team in the Big 12 needs to be ranked. That's my thing. Like, why isn't Washington ranked? I think Washington's a better team than Arizona is right now.
Well, they will be after they beat Oregon.
And I get it. They have the bad loss to Wisconsin. I get that. But that bad loss to Wisconsin doesn't look as bad now. Wisconsin's playing really good football right now. They just beat the brakes off of Illinois this past weekend. And well, for Wisconsin, it's beating that's about as much as beating the brakes off somebody that they can do. But I mean, like, I don't get errors. Like, what's the big win that they have? I mean, at least, you know, with Washington, they can point to and say, hey, you know, we lost to 2 top 15 teams, and, you know, we beat Illinois convincingly, and we've had blowout wins. We're playing good football, and, you know, I mean, none of those teams are any good, but I don't know. I would have had them. I would have had them in. I get why they're in, but I wouldn't have.
Black Irish 864 says it very, very clean. Just win.
And my man was rocking that same hat at the game on Saturday. Got a chance to see Chris on Saturday. So
love that.
Appreciate that very much.
Love that. Ethan Kaufman with another super chat. Thank you very much. I don't see it happening, but if Michigan does beat Ohio State, do they get in? Who do they knock out? That would be a big jump from 15.
I don't think so.
The number 1 team in the country.
I get that. I don't think that's enough to get them all the way up to 10. I don't think that knocks Bama out. I don't think that knocks Notre Dame out. I don't think that knocks Oklahoma out. I mean, it'd be a nice win. It'd be a heck of a win. But, I mean, their resume would still include them getting beat by double digits to Oklahoma. It would include them getting stomped by USC. their next best win. That's a good win, but their next best win would be what? Washington. You know, maybe if Washington was ranked, it might be enough, but I just don't think their overall resume is strong enough to do that.
It wouldn't surprise me, though, that the week that they would put Michigan in the playoffs would be the one week that Washington makes it back into the top 25.
100%. Yeah, I could see that.
I don't think that would be a coincidence.
Yeah. I guys, I just don't think Michigan has a chance this weekend. I don't think Carnell Tate's playing. I don't know if Jeremiah Smith is playing. I don't think it's going to matter. This Ohio State defense is playing on such a different level than it was last year. And they were very good on defense last year, but this Ohio State defense is just a different animal than it was last year. It really – guys, I know they haven't played a lot of great teams. They're giving up 7.6 points per game this year. Like last year, they gave up 12.9. This team's just playing.
That's what that makes that game so interesting is that defense last year didn't lose them the game.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't think Ohio State's – I just think this is a different Ohio State team, regular season-wise. I think last year's team was more built for the playoffs. This year's team is more built for the regular season. I'm not saying they're not built for the playoffs. I mean, they're built – they're more consistent. Last year's team – like what we forget about last year's team because of how good they were in the postseason, they sucked in November at multiple games. Like in multiple games. They were terrible against Nebraska. They looked very, very average against Northwestern. Like the Michigan game didn't come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like even the Indiana win, their offense didn't do a whole lot. They didn't look great against Penn State. I mean, Penn State choked that game away more than it was a great game by Ohio State. This team is different. This team is just pounding everyone and it's just not really played a competitive football game all year. Part of that is their schedule, but I mean, part of that too is that they're really good. So we'll see. I thought they played sloppy against Rutgers and won 42-9. I thought it was one of their least impressive games in a month. They won 42-9. So I could be wrong. I mean, at this point in time, Michigan beating Ohio State won't shock me. I just don't see it happening. It won't shock me just because I've seen worse Michigan teams beat better Ohio State teams. You know what I mean? Like
the fact that they've won 4 years in a row is just mind blowing.
Right.
Like that's all there is to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm with you. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate you all very, very much. We're going to get out of here and we'll be talking more about this, obviously, moving forward. Brian and Trav will be back tomorrow in the afternoon. And then Sean and myself will be back tomorrow at 5:00 to do weekday sports beat and all that fun stuff. So lots coming up here. Brian,
what's going on Friday, Vince? What's going on Friday?
Well,
who's doing a show on Friday?
Somebody has the day off.
Some OGs. Might be
this
some
guy
OGs.
right here. So yeah, Brian and I are going to do the afternoon show on Friday, 1:00. Be there or be square.
Vince and I are going to talk about the start time for that game. We'll have a chat about that, Vince.
Fair enough.
I'll just air it out now. What I'll call you about is potentially starting it at noon.
Okay.
So that way we're live during the noon games, but then we can talk about those that are happening. And then
I forget the games
3:30
going on Friday as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we'll chat about it. But I was just thinking maybe we start at noon on Friday.
Hey, noon on Friday, everybody. Make sure you tune in.
And reminder that we will be doing a live game watch on Saturday night. So we will not be doing our normal post-game show. We will have a post-game segment. It'll be a little bit more condensed.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a blowout, we will start the post-game show in the fourth quarter because it's going to be 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, seriously.
But we will be live. We're going to have it all set up. We'll probably start going live about a half an hour before the games. We'll probably go live around 10 o'clock, wrap up sort of the day's games and what that means. And then we'll go live during the show. We'll take an intermission at halftime. We'll probably all go take power naps during halftime. We'll do a little bit of an analysis of the first half, but it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys have asked for it. I'm looking forward to it. This will be Trevor's first one. We now know Trevor will be with us on Saturday night. So that'll be a blast. So Vince, this will be you and I's third.
Yeah, we've done it 3 times.
Right? And we did USC once, Stanford once, and then this will be our second Stanford game. We did Stanford in 23 as well, right?
All of them. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We didn't do one last year. We did not do one last year. So
no, we didn't.
Yep.
So it'll be a lot of fun. So
yep. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So all kinds of good stuff coming your guys' way all week long. So make sure you stay locked in. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Share with your family and friends. Give us a 5-star review.
And nobody called Trevor on Saturday because Trevor is not a late night guy like I am. He will need a power nap in the middle of the day. I don't want y'all waking him up. And I know Vince is taking a nap.
I'm not a nap guy. I'm just power through. I'm drinking energy drink at 10.
Oh my goodness.
So we're either going to get a really tired Trevor or a super wired Trevor. It's like, let's go. Hey, Trev, they gained 3 yards. I know, baby. It's the best 3-yard gain of the day. I'm loving it right now. Yeah, Trev's going to be like, hey, man. Chill, bro.
For the first and final time for Trev on the live show.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm going to assume, Trev, that we won't have a whole lot of 10:30 games that do the live shows in the future. So I don't think it'll have to be as much of a problem. It's going to be super fired up.
Oh, boy. So everybody, make sure you join us for all that, and we'd really appreciate it. So for Brian and Trev, I'm Vince. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm saving the happy Thanksgivings for tomorrow. So we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast presented by FanDuel.